there was a comic, I was president of Ahuru Sasa. Do you guys all know who Sasa is? Come on, y'all. Oh, if y'all want to go to a party, I don't know. But I was president of SASA. SASA is the oldest multicultural organization on this campus, and it stands for Freedom Now in Swahili. I was sitting up in the office, chilling with the vice president, Doreen Ajapone, at the time, who was also a student here from URI. And she showed me this cigar. You guys read the cigar on a regular basis? Yeah, okay.
I do.
Good, good. Thank you for participating. You know what? For participating, here you go. We have some other books we're going to pass out, as well as I think Paul brought some other things we may pass out as well, but please participate. You only get out of life what you put into it. If you don't put anything into it, what do you got, right? But at that time, there was a comic that got ran in the newspaper, and it was, this was the setting. All white class, an obvious minority student walking into the classroom, and the caption said, "If you're the janitor, please wait till after class to empty the trash, but if you're one of our minority students, welcome." So the way we interpret is this, that at first glance, we're the help. We're not the students. We're not here trying to better. So we thought we were being slighted. That's how we felt. There's a long story behind that, but I bring that up because people were pissed off. People were very upset. And if you allow people to stay upset and quiet, it just stays there. People continue to stay upset. And that tension is there. When people are pissed off, we must find a way to encourage them to express that in a constructive way. In a very constructive way. When we were thinking about, because we thought, like, we're going to do something, man, we're going to burn something down. We were so pissed off. We were really that pissed. When we were brainstorming about what we were going to do, it definitely included some things that would have locked us up. But fortunately, I see nonviolence as synonymous with intelligence, so our intelligence prevailed, and we didn't do anything like that. And I say that because if you're intelligent, you're trying to do the least amount of work with the greatest impact. Or you're trying to handle a conflict right the first place so you don't have to deal with it again, right? How many people in here consider themselves intelligent? Right? And how does violence ever help you faster than an intelligent approach? No. So that's how I see nonviolence and intelligence. It's very similar, extremely similar. But we were able to organize and motivate people to give them an expression. And thank God that President Carothers was a servant leader. Because if he wasn't a servant leader, he wouldn't have met with us. He wouldn't have talked to us. The pressure would have came down on us in a way, we might have been, because I'm sure there was different things that they could have kicked us off campus for at different times. If they wanted to go that route to get rid of us. Y'all could have taken that approach. But he was a servant leader. And what I mean by that is he opened his doors to listening to what our problem was. In fact, do you know that the place in which you sit right now is the product of students voicing their opinion? This Multicultural Center here wouldn't be here if students didn't organize to create this space. So understand, you are already sitting on the shoulders of students who are here before you. But that idea of servant leadership is so, so important. When I was young and doing that stuff with the BUA, all I wanted to do was work with Dr. King. This was in 1998. He's obviously not around, right? That's all I wanted to do. And then in 1999, Dr. Lafayette showed up on campus. Dr. Lafayette was the director for Dr. King's last campaign, the Poor People's Campaign in Chicago. He's also responsible for the groundwork being laid in Selma, Alabama, where the Voters' Rights Act of 1965 came out. And Dr. Lafayette, in his last conversation with Dr. King, the morning of his assassination, they were talking about what the next thing is going to be. What are we going to do? And Dr. King told Dr. Lafayette, well, Bernard at the time, we're going to institutionalize and internationalize nonviolence education. 6 hours later, Dr. King's murdered. Dr. Lafayette and him never had that final conversation to figure out exactly how it was going to be done. But fortunately enough, he ended up here, and he continued to experiment with it. Here at the University of Rhode Island, I had the opportunity, thank you to the servant leadership of President Carothers and many of the other administrators here at the university, to be able to travel all over this world. My first trip to Africa was because of the University of Rhode Island. July 16, 2000, I remember the day to the day I died because it was my birthday. It was the best gift I ever got, real talk. And so we went to South Africa, and that was the start. Because Dr. Lafayette is part of this global conference trying to bring awareness to nonviolence, because we know it's a powerful thing. It's extremely powerful. So South Africa was one of the conferences that we did. Then we went to, well, I think it came back here, but then we went to Colombia, and we have thousands of people trained in Colombia. In fact, we have a center that once upon a time was one of the most violent prisons in the world. In this prison, they'd kill 5 to 6 people a day. 5 to 6 people a day. Crazy, right? After the implementation of nonviolence as a philosophy and a way of life, and ongoing workshops and trainings, there's been no murders in that prison. This prison was so violent that they cut a man's head off to play soccer with it. Right? In Chicago, most recently, we institutionalized this training program at a high school called North Lawndale College Prep Academy. Right? It's in the south side. In fact, it's just about 3 blocks from where Dr. King moved his family when he moved to Chicago. This school had 80 or 90 fights in their school one year. And for them, that's a lot, because they were known as a peace school. And but when they were asked, what does it mean to be a peace school, they could never really articulate it. One of the women who wrote the song, not the one that had the bandana on, but the one that was to the right of her, Tiffany Childress, she's a teacher over there. And she came here and got the training. She actually brought me. I went out there, Dr. Lafayette went out there, and the other co-author of the book, I got him to come out too, David Jensen. And the 3 of us, plus one of our local trainers, trained a group of about 25 of their youth. Those 25 youth in their school became peace warriors. And now peace is cool in their school. And they went an entire school year with no fights, no physical violence in their fights the very next year after implementing this. Do you guys know how many people died in Chicago? Do you know in 2009, more citizens died in Chicago than US soldiers in the war? This is a community that's extremely violent. The internal violence that's happening there, they're living in a state of pervasiveness. And I'm getting the hook. They're telling me to hurry up. But I'm bringing you to my desire to want to work with King. Dr. Lafayette shows up. I get that chance. Now I work for an organization called the Gathering for Justice. The Gathering for Justice is an intergenerational organization that is mobilizing communities all over. And we're equipping them with the skill and will of Kingian Nonviolence, which is what we've been talking about. Our leader of that organization, his name is Harry Belafonte. Have any of you heard of this name before? Please Google him. You ever hear Dale? Me say that? Right?
Yeah.
I know.
I took music ed.
Okay, so then you might even know how important he is in the music industry, because he was the first artist ever, black, white, orange, or anything, to sell 1 million records in the United States and in Europe. Very first artist ever to do that. Now, he was a servant leader himself, because all the money that he got, he put back into the movement. Dr. King was able to go out on the road and do what he did, because Mr. Belafonte promised him that your kids, your wife, will not want for anything. We will take care of them. Do what you have to do, they will be taken care of. Mr. Belafonte put his money into all of those student leaders that we hear about in the civil rights movement. He is still doing that today. I keep the lights on because I'm part of his organization. And I have the fortunate ability to travel all over the country. And I want you to know that the feeling that I have now, traveling around the country, is stronger than it has ever been, as far as people's desire for change. The desire to want to reach out to other youth going through the same exact thing, just happen to live in a different zip code. Because the issues are the same. How we express our frustrations with those issues are different. But our communities are all plagued with the same thing. And we're about to watch a quick video that describes a little bit of the Gathering for Justice. We went around the country. You know how kind of like this servant leader is supposed to keep their eyes open and listening to everyone and trying to analyze the entire environment? That's what the Gathering for Justice was trying to do. We traveled all over the country asking people, what was the issue? What is bothering you? How can we help? And the number one issue that kept coming up was youth incarceration. The way in which our youth are being treated by the police and by systems. It's almost like we've created a whole bunch of conflict and we let you guys and the youth deal with it. Like, you guys are dealing with our mistakes and their mistakes. I don't even want to claim them. But we're dealing with their mistakes. So how should we help the youth today deal with that? We can't abandon them. We cannot. If we do, then I guarantee you, somebody will be climbing through your house eventually. Because what affects one directly affects all of us indirectly. And let's see this.
Okay. Should we show this or?
I'd love to show it to y'all.
Okay.
You got, I'm sorry.
How are we doing time-wise? Are we all right?
Just make sure you leave some time for